Welcome, Landis. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Hey Sally, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, great. Just kind of relaxing, enjoying this day, getting things started. So it's been great.
Good, good. So, we are here today to talk about summer programs. And no, it is not too early. Just so you know, Landis, we're recording this in December, but this is going to go live,
Okay.
go on the air in January 4th, but still not too early. You know, like so what I was thinking we could do is we could sort of talk a little bit about like why you might want to start looking now. And I think there's a few different reasons for that. So why don't you dive in on that?
Sure. Well, it's great to get started early thinking about some summer opportunities because some of these deadlines are actually starting to come up. So for some selective programs that are out there, they're looking for students to demonstrate their interest, to complete the applications, to get that submitted right after the winter break. And so it would be important to start looking now just to prepare for any of those early applications that may be required to do a summer program starting in the summer of 2024.
Hmm. Yeah, I think people don't realize, but I mean, the program that always comes to mind, I think the Wharton program,
Hmm.
like the Wharton programs at UPenn have January
Yep,
deadlines, right?
that's right. That's right. That's right. And so, yeah, that's the University of Pennsylvania Leadership in Business in the Business World program. What's so interesting is that one of my students that I work with attended that program, and she absolutely loved it. She got to spend time there at Penn, really immerse herself in classes. She actually learned a lot about human resource management, something
Mm.
that she had never even understood or thought about before, and that helped her pivot towards what she actually wants to study in school and what she wants her professional aspirations to be. So it was a great program for her. But this selective program does have an earlier deadline. So, in order for students to really get into it and really kind of figure out if that kind of program is something that fits what they want to do, they need to start thinking about applying to that very soon. Yep.
Yeah. And also because those programs often require letters of recommendation.
Mhm.
Right? And you do not want to be asking a recommender, like, oh, you've got 2 days to write this. That you don't want to make your recommender unhappy with you, right?
Yes, yes, yes. This is supposed to be someone who's advocating on your behalf. And so you want to make sure that they write a very strong letter of recommendation for you. You want to make sure that they're supporting your candidacy. And because that's going to be an integral part of this application, you want to make sure that that person writing that letter is really strongly behind you and your candidacy. So, yes, you want to actually know what those deadlines are, understand what the requirements are as well. So, in
Hmm.
addition to completing getting those letters of recommendations, students may have to submit transcripts, they may have to submit application essays. So there could be a whole series of things that are required for a student to complete applications for some more of these selective programs.
And I want to be clear, they don't all have January deadlines, but even so, I think there's other reasons to be looking at all this early too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is going to be the right program for you? I mean, I went straight into Wharton and UPenn, which is a very hoity-toity,
Right,
program, but there's a lot of good programs out there.
right.
So, like, what are some other ones that you might be thinking about, or what might students be thinking about when they're choosing a program?
Well, the first thing to think about is what are my intentions? So I would encourage students to really think about what do I want to do with that summer? What are my intentions? And I like to have students kind of figure this out by going through the three E's. So, like the letter E as an excellent, okay? The three E's for me are employment, education, and enrichment, okay? And so I encourage students to start there to think first, do I want a job? Or an internship, something like that that's going to pay me, or an unpaid internship, something like that that's going to be an employment opportunity. Also, thinking about that can be about like, are there experiences during the summer that can help me understand my future employment? Like, for example, like a pre medical program or pre dentistry program or something like that. So, employment can be one of those categories in which students start to think about summer opportunities. As far as the next one is more like of an educational experience. This will be for an opportunity for a student to get some more exposure to things like architecture or literature or engineering, something that really will help their educational purposes. This can be something as like the summer programs that we talked about that are housed at many institutions, across the country. This could be a student focusing in on self-study, or they could go ahead and take a college course at a university or community college near them. Anything that helps enhance their educational experiences. And then the final opportunity can be enrichment. This is where a student learns to develop their own kind of personal side. So maybe through a volunteer organization or through camp counseling or something like that. So having an enrichment opportunity where they're developing their personality and really kind of focusing in on learning more about themselves. So those are like the broad strokes where students can start to think about these different type of experiences. The Wharton program is one that does focus a little bit on education and also employment and a little bit on enrichment, right? Where a student can get a lot of those things. But there are some programs that are kind of really just kind of focused on certain areas. Like there's a program at Interlochen for arts where a student can really kind of maximize his or her potential with regards to performing art, dance, theater, things like that. There's a business program at UT Austin that a
Mm-hmm.
student can go into to really kind of maximize their opportunities and experiences to learn what the business world is like. Um, there's a women in tech program at MIT. So
Mm-hmm.
women that are thinking about going into engineering and STEM and things like that can focus on this type of program, again, for those educational and enrichment purposes. So there's a lot of stuff out there. But again, the initial thing that I want students to think about is, what is the purpose of this for me? What am
Mm-hmm.
I trying to gain? What am I trying to get out of that experience?
Yeah, don't just chase a name. I mean,
Yep.
I'm sort of guilty. Like I let off with the Ivies, which is like actually something I really try hard not to do because it's, what most people think of first. But I love it that you mentioned Interlochen, for example, which a lot of people probably haven't heard of. But if you worked in college admissions, you absolutely know Interlochen. It's this amazing arts camp and arts program, art school.
Mhm.
Some of the best programs are going to be at places that you've probably never heard of.
That's right. In fact, one of the ones that I found that was very interesting actually came from my alma mater, which is an Institute of Arctic Studies, where
Hmm.
a student has an opportunity to go to Greenland for a research program. So there's so many different programs and a wide variety out there that I do encourage students just to start looking just to see what's out there. For resources, MIT actually has a great website. And I know, Sally, that you recommend sometimes for your students to check that out, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, oh, regularly, because I love it. Well, I love that MIT website because they lead off with their own programs, but then they give a whole list of other programs that
Right.
they consider to be impactful in the admission process. So it's such a great resource because I think one of the trickiest things
Mm-hmm.
is is this often people think that a college program is going to help them get into that college. And the vast majority of the time, that's actually not the case. It's not going to help you. But sometimes there's a program that might, and MIT seems to list a lot of those programs around, I should say, science and tech. I mean, they're not
Right.
going to,
Right.
they don't have Iowa Young Writers on there, which is a
Right.
great program as an
Right.
example. So,
That's right. That's right. That's right. And so, really kind of thinking about all of this coming together again, like the focus should be on the student first to think about what it
mhm,
is they want to get out of that experience. And looking at some of these websites that kind of aggregate, that kind of put together all of these different summer programs is great because that gives you an opportunity and exposure to things that the student may not have seen before. And so
mhm,
it's great to get into that. But the other thing to understand about that is that, again, like just because you go to that specific summer program, and I'll reiterate this
mhm,
also, Ellie, is that like that is not an automatic shoe in to get into that particular university. Just because you went to that summer program at MIT or Penn or Georgia Tech does
mhm,
not mean that you're automatically guaranteed to be admitted to that institution. It does give them, the admissions office, an understanding about your desire to pursue one of those employment enrichment or educational opportunities to deepen your own interests. Again, like
mhm,
put the focus on making sure that I can gain out of that experience. Once the student is able to do that and develop themselves over the course of time and really showcase what it is that they're gaining through these summer opportunities, that's what's going to help them in that school, not the name of the program or anything like that. It's what it is that the student gained out of that program. I also
Hmm.
encourage students as they think about attending summer programs to think about ways that they can like take notes and blog or take pictures, like create memories from those experiences. Because a lot of times in the application process, students may be asked to talk about their summers, to talk about what they did, how they spent that time. And if they're able to reflect on that log of information or that photo journal that they created, that would be a good resource for them to dig into those memories to help create those application essays.
I think that's such an important point. And
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the harder things that I often have to explain to families, that it's
Mm-hmm.
not, I went to this program and if they give grades, I got an A.
Right.
But like, what did you get out of it? How were you able to reflect on that? How does this play a role in your long-term goals? And those long-term goals don't even have to be, I want a career in XYZ. It could be, I want to continue to educate myself around my love of music for my whole life. Like that,
Right.
I don't want to be a musician, but I love music. And
Right.
so I want that to continue to play a role,
That's right.
that kind of broader reflection. And when they're not able to do that, I kind of wonder like how helpful would this program be? Maybe honestly a part-time job
Mm-hmm.
would have been better, where you're interacting with people, you're in a situation you're not used to because you're not in a classroom, that sort of thing.
Exactly, exactly. And this is why, again, I will restate that it's best to start looking at these things early,
Hmm.
because looking at them reflectively is good because, again, that's going to be part of the application process. But be proactive. I want
Hmm.
the students and the families to really think proactively and strategically about what the summer opportunity means, how the student is going to gain something from it, and how it is that that's going to enrich that student's background and experiences.
Hmm.
That's really what's most important. I also encourage students to think about like the summer is not necessarily to say like, oh my goodness, this is what's going to get me into college, right?
Hmm.
It's supposed to be a really kind of seamless way for a student to integrate something that they are learning about themselves, that they want to learn about more, that they're curious about, that they're really willing to take that risk, that stretch to go into that experience because they know it's going to benefit them personally and kind of holistically, right? I
Hmm.
encourage them to think about summer opportunities in that way, because in that sense, then they'll think about like, I want to do this because I'm aiming for these things. These are important for me. Instead of the student thinking, I'm doing this to get into the college, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And we know realistically, like getting into college is part of it, but the good
Mm-hmm.
news is there's a lot of different ways to get into colleges. So start with what you want to do, because the last thing that you want, I think, is to do things that you hate
Mm-hmm.
and then not get into the college you want anyway, which
That's right.
frankly, when it comes to the Ivies, is these are highly rejective institutions, right?
Right.
So the best thing for you to do is to pursue something that's very meaningful to you,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, like at the end of it all. And the fact is that that's going to impress the colleges in the long run anyway.
That's
So,
right. That's right.
that sense
I
of
always tell
meaning.
kids, you do you. You do you.
Yeah, exactly. But something productive. If you do you means video games, okay, you got to go farther than that.
Right, right,
You got
right.
to go farther than that. But
Agree.
maybe it is a part-time job. Maybe that is more your scene, and that's good
Yep,
too. So,
yep, great.
all right. Well, any last thoughts or?
Yeah, I'd like to just say, like, again, when students are thinking about their summers, really kind of plan ahead, really kind of think
Mhm.
about how it is that that summer enrichment, employment, or educational opportunity is going to enhance their background and experiences, and then just kind of go from there.
Yeah, enrich your life,
Yep,
broadly speaking.
broadly speaking.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Landis. Well, this was great. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
you're welcome, Sally. Good seeing you, and happy
Good
holidays.
seeing you too. Yeah, happy holidays. And all right, so we're going to take a break, and then we'll be talking to Mary Suyun. And with her, I will be talking about juniors starting the process. Not too early for juniors to start thinking about this too.